If you're learning sampling, then there are some skills that are going to help you level up fast, and some that are a complete waste of your time early on. So today, I'm ranking every important sampling skill from beginner to pro, including one that most producers obsess over, that I'm going to put in F tier. And so let's start with the first one, finding the tempo and getting your sample on time. So straight away, I can tell you that finding the tempo is gonna be S tier. Now, well, finding the tempo is not all that exciting, but again, for this tier list, we're evaluating things based on what you should learn first. And so when it comes to finding tempo, I think it's legit the number one thing you should learn when it comes to sampling. Because if you can't find the tempo and get your sample on beat, then doing anything else becomes impossible and kinda pointless. So most people, when they get into sampling, they usually use soul and gospel samples, which, for example, for this beat, I use this soul sample by Teddy Pendergrass called Set Me Free. And so it sounds like this.
Set me free, take these chains from my aching heart and let me be.
And so basically the thing about soul samples and gospel samples is that their tempo is wonky. Obviously most of these songs are played by humans, right? But the thing about humans playing is that basically the tempo is never perfect, right? So when working with any sample, it's really important for you to be actually able to get your sample on time so you actually know when your beats hit. Now don't get me wrong, you don't have to quantize your samples to the grid. It's just important that you know where your beats hit. And so basically after getting my sample on tempo, pitching it up 5 semitones and speeding it up, it's gonna sound like this. And so basically what I did with it is I slightly chopped it up to create a new progression out of my sample. And so basically my sample is following this baseline progression that we have here. And I also added quite a bit of processing to the sample. So this cymatic origin to cut off the high end, this EQ to cut off the low end, a reverb and a phaser. And all of this is gonna sound like this. And so let's move on to point number 2, which is finding great samples. And I'm gonna place finding great samples in F tier. Now, I know this might come as a shock to a lot of people. So I've actually had this problem myself when I was starting out. And I've actually talked with quite a few members of Sample Academy, which by the way, it's first link in the description if you wanna check that out, that beginners get so caught up in finding the perfect sample. Now, while yes, finding a good sample is really important and it can skyrocket the potential of your beat, I still think that that's something you should put off learning or doing for later on in your sampling journey. And that's simply because for you as a beginner, it's actually way less important what sample you pick than you think. It's way more important now for you to actually learn how to sample, how to use samples, how to add stuff to them. Because just imagine this real quick. You actually find the perfect sample, right? And now what? Like, what are you gonna do with it when you don't even know how to add drums to it, right? Okay, and so let's go back to this beat so I can quickly finish it up and actually show you what I did with it. And so first of all, I'm gonna grab this analog lab synth and I'm gonna build my chords on top of my bass line. So they're going to sound like this. And now for the important stuff, the last thing we have to do is drums. So I'm actually gonna have 2 layers of drums, which one is gonna be this drum break by Bader Meinhof. It's a moral issue. And for the second track, I'm just gonna grab this kick, these snares, and this crash. And I'm gonna build my own pattern to thicken up my drum loop, which is going to sound like this. for the rest of the beat, I'm just gonna grab one additional sound and this tambourine loop, and that's pretty much the entire beat. So if I grab all of this and arrange it all out, here's how the finished beat is going to sound. And so next up, we're gonna have finding the root notes and getting the baseline of your sample and adding proper chords. And that's gonna go to B tier. So finding root notes, and by extension here, kind of adding proper chords, because when you have the right root notes, you can add the right chords really easy, is literally the middle of the pack. It does have great potential to elevate what you already have in the beat, especially if the base of your entire beat is the sample. But then again, if the bass is wonky, then probably root notes and chords won't do all that much for you. So now let's actually check out the different beat. And so I didn't do anything crazy with the sample. I just used this sample by Angel called Mariner, and I just worked it to the tempo, pitched it up 4 semitones, and slightly sped it up. And all of that is gonna sound like this. So basically for my root notes, what I did is I grabbed this wonk bass, which sounds like this. And I just added a sidechain compressor to it, so the bass tags when my kicks come in. And what I did with the bass is really simple, because I literally just followed my root notes of the sample, which the root notes for my sample here are really simple. It's literally just 2 notes repeating over and over again. So I feel like this progression is just a little bit too simple, so I actually wanted to spice it up. And so for the section B, I took this bass line and I slightly modified it to create my own bass line and then build my chords on top of that. So here is how that looks. You can see that the notes are kind of kept the same, because we have E and E here, and then we have C and C here. So the basis of it is the same. But then we just have a couple of transition notes, and that's what I actually build my chords on top of. So I just use this really nice sounding Juno synth, and here are the chords I built with it. So I actually recently released my course for sample course in Sample Academy. If that's something you're interested in, then go check it out. It's first link in the description. But that's actually not all I did for my chords, because I actually wanted to double them. And so what I did is I recorded myself humming, which basically is this bottom track here. But what I did with it is I just added an auto-tune, and then I just have this whole chain for the processing of my vocals. And I made them play the exact same chords as this Juno synth. Let's move on to point number 4, which is identifying your rhythms. So basically adding drums, and that is going to be another S tier skill, right? And it is S tier, but still keep in mind that it's still behind finding your tempo and getting your samples on tempo. To be honest, adding drums and getting your samples on tempo, so our first point, are the only 2 things that you actually need to complete a beat. I mean, that's literally how hip-hop started. Now, let me explain a bit more what I mean by identifying your rhythms. So basically, identifying your rhythms is just identifying what's happening in your sample. It's so important, so you don't place the kicks in the wrong place, you don't make the wrong bounce. Of course, I mean, if you know what you're doing and you're doing it intentionally, then I guess it's okay. But if you don't know what you're doing, then it's just gonna quickly cause your beat to become a mess rhythmically. And so for this beat, for the drums here, I grabbed that drum break, and this is gonna be this drum break called I Just Want to Celebrate by Rare Earth. And I actually added quite a bit of processing to it because first of all, I added this preamp to just add a little bit of saturation to the entire drum loop. Then I used this distortion plugin to just squeeze the living hell out of this drum break. So it's gonna be really, really distorted. And then I just added a little bit of compression to bring all of that color out, and then EQ to just tame the sub frequencies. And as you can see, it's chopped up here, so it's gonna sound like this. So I use this distorted version of this drum break for the intro of the beat. However, for the main loop, I use this drum break without distortion, and then I also add my own pattern. So basically, for my own pattern, I grabbed this kick and these snares, and I just added a little bit of analog clip and another LA2A compressor to just squeeze all of this together, and it's gonna sound like this. Lastly, to just finish this beat up, I grabbed this sine wave and this electric guitar. And so yeah, that's gonna be the entire beat. So if I grab all of this and arrange it all out, here is how the finished beat is going to sound. And so as our first point, we're gonna have processing your samples. So basically mixing your samples and placing them in the right space sonically. And that's gonna go to C tier. And that's just simply because if you don't get the other things right, then no matter what you do mixing wise, no matter how you process your sample, it's just not gonna help to make your beat sound good. So if your bass is not solid, then any amount of processing, any amount of mixing is just not gonna help. Though let me say that if you do get the other things right, then processing your sample is going to be that little thing that's going to bring your entire beat to the next level. So let's actually look at another one of my beats. And in this beat, I used this sample called Going in Circles. And so basically I used two sections, one with vocals and one without vocals. So let's listen to both of them. So for my processing here, what I did is first I added this cymatics origin, which basically cuts off the high end, and this EQ that cuts off the low end. And so basically what's that gonna do is the high end cut is gonna ensure that we have space for other stuff in the high end and that the sample is just not taking too much space. And same for the EQ. However, this EQ is cutting out the low end, and that's really important because that's gonna give the space for our bass to come through and for our kicks to hit harder. And next I got this sidechain compressor, which basically when we have our drums coming in later, anything that's gonna go above this blue line, so our threshold, it's just gonna duck our sample, so it's gonna make it quieter so the rest of our drums can shine through. So actually let me show you this in action. Right, if you still can't hear it, then I'm just gonna exaggerate this line, so I'm gonna pull it down, and now for sure you're gonna be able to hear the drums tuning down the sample. And lastly, for my processing, I just have this LA2A compressor because I just wanted to squeeze this sample a little bit more, because in the sample there are those nice horns, so I just wanted to bring them out even more. And And so as our last point, we're gonna have chopping your samples, and straight away chopping your samples is gonna go into A tier, and chopping up the sample opens up a whole new world of possibilities with the sample. So for this beat that we have here, the way I actually chopped up my sample is, first of all, remember when I told you we had two sections, one with the vocals and second with just the instruments? Well, that's simply because both of the sections play the exact same thing musically. And so that allows me to switch between them when going through my loop, which allows me to add some variation. So the jumps between the chops might sound a little bit weird now, but I promise you that in a full beat, you're not gonna be able to hear that. And so basically, just to finish this beat off, I added a couple more things, like for example, this bass and this synth. It's actually 3 synths stacked on top of each other, but I just combined them into one. And lastly, I just added this guitar. And yeah, that's pretty much the entirety of the beat. So if you want to learn sampling, then check out Sample Academy. It's truly the #1 place for you to learn sampling. And every week we have a live community call with everybody. So if you need help with your beats, then that call or just making a post on the community is literally the perfect way to improve your beats and get feedback. So if that sounds interesting to you, then go check it out. It's first link in the description. And yeah, so here's how our final tier list looks. And if you want to go deeper into any of these skills, then right now you have a playlist in the middle of your screen containing 6 of my videos with in-depth explanations of all of these skills. So click that playlist right now and see you there.
Go dumb again. They ain't see me cause I pulled up in my other bins. Last week I was in my other bins. Throw your diamonds up, cause we in this bitch another again. Photo shoot fresh, looking like wealth. I'm about to call a paparazzi on myself.